Good morning. Thanks for joining us here on KXAN Live. I'm your anchor, Esmeralda Zamora, and today we have our first warning weather Q&A with meteorologist Rich Segal. Rich, how are you doing today?
It's a good day. It's the first day of the daylight saving time season. Some people that are working here today seem to have a little bit of a difficulty adjusting to it. I fortunately didn't because I kind of tricked myself and went to bed earlier last night than normal.
I wish I could prepare more for that,
Yeah.
but I don't think much can prepare you for this time change.
Yeah.
But our clouds look beautiful today. It's a little more chillier this morning.
Yes, it feels like winter again.
Yeah, I'm glad to see this weather out there today.
All right.
Well, today we have our Q&A segment with you, and you prepared a few questions from our viewers that we have to answer here live. So let's jump into it.
Okay.
So our first question is, do you believe you have a duty to inform viewers about climate change's impact on the weather? This is a very popular one, right? You get this quite frequently.
Yes. I love this question. It gives me an opportunity to just say, yes, I believe we do have an obligation to tell people what is going on with the weather and even further with the climate, because people want to know things like, and I've got a graphic that I've put together. It's a rudimentary one, but nevertheless, people would like answers to, especially those that are new here, why are there so many 100-degree days in the summer? It used to not be that way. Or they want to know, for example, a few weeks ago we had the extreme cold in the third week of February. Well, why does that happen in what is perceived to be a warming climate? Disruptions in the polar vortex lead to that, and people want to know how that works. And we feel like it's necessary for us to include that as part of the weather story. And then we had some tropical storms that turned into hurricanes and even major hurricanes, and there was rapid intensification. Well, why does that happen? What leads to these storms becoming stronger in such a very short period of time before or as they make landfall? So why does this happen? Why did this happen to Helene? Why did this happen to Milton? There are people that want to know that. And the wildfires, there seem to be more and more of them. Why are we in the United States seeming to be more susceptible to the wildfire season? Does it have something to do with the ongoing drought and the winds? And we think that we have an obligation to tell people without banging them over the head with it, just to present the facts as we know them, citing our sources and being more reliable that way. Where are we getting information from that tells us, well, what is creating this warming climate, and identifying those problem areas that we feel are contributing to the threat of a changing climate. We even had one viewer write in to us that said, we'd like to see you report more on climate change on a daily basis. Sometimes that may be a little bit too much, all right? We know that there are people who believe in it. We know that there are people who don't believe in it, and that's fine. We just have an obligation to do it as professionally and as meticulously as we possibly can to give you the benefit of the expertise, not necessarily of us, but of the climatologists and the scientists who report on these and who are experts in this field. So yes, the answer is I think we do have a duty. We try to fulfill it, and we try to do it, again, in as professional a way as possible.
And like you mentioned, a lot of people on this topic are believers and some are not believers. And you do receive a lot of questions from viewers on a daily basis. When you do receive messages about those non-believers and their questions or their doubts to some of your forecasting or climate change comments, what is a response that you would share?
Well, interestingly enough, personally, I can't speak for the others. I have never received an email from someone who may not agree with me. I do know that I did a story blog several weeks ago, and I did have a viewer that was upset about what I wrote. And what I wrote was that there are instances where it is perceived by the medical profession that climate change could, not is, but could be having an effect on the health of our children. And I tried to write that in as matter of fact as I possibly could without causing alarm, but The viewer rightfully was concerned about the wording, especially of the headline, and that, sometimes the headline can change the whole tenor of the body of the composition that you have written. And so, I made it more of a concerted effort to even attribute my sources even more so than I might have done in that particular item. But I'm not going to get into an argument with people about this. If they write in all capitals or exclamation marks, then I know that they're yelling at me, and I will not deal with that. I absolutely don't have to deal with that. But if it's presented in a professional manner, why do you think this, and can we have a general discussion? I'll try to answer them as best as I possibly can, but you must understand that I am one that does believe that there is something going on with our climate within the last 20 years, the last 10 instances of Earth's being warmer, the warmer year, have happened in this 21st century.
Yeah, we've had a warmer than normal winter this year.
Yes, we
so
have.
we're feeling those effects, and we're feeling that climate change. Now that we're on the topic, before we move to another question, I had one question in mind. Climate change and allergies is a big topic. Why do you think people do believe that allergies are affected by climate change, and why do people not believe that?
Can we put that off?
Yeah, we can.
Because
save
that's
it.
my blog for this week.
Oh wow, we have great.
So we
think
have
alike.
great chemistry this morning because we're thinking along the same line. But after I answer these next two questions, then I will get into that. But that is the subject of my blog that published yesterday on kxan.com under the weather and traffic tab, and then the weather blog tab.
Yeah, and we can feature that right after
Yeah.
once we answer the question. But the second question is, why are noctilucent clouds so rare to see?
So we have a nighttime version of what they look like. They're really pretty clouds too.
Yes, they look like water waves.
It looks like the waves in the lake. And so, but these are the Noctilucent clouds. And one of the things or several things about them is that they are a rarity. They really don't happen, and you really likely will not see them during this winter and spring season, because they usually appear during the summer in the warmer clime, higher in the atmosphere. They are the highest clouds on Earth. Sometimes in this one, they look like a bluish, silvery hue and are very wispy. They almost take on the characteristic of those thin cirrus clouds that we see, but those are, for the most part, totally white. So this is why they occur more so in the summertime than they would in any other time of the season, but they're always pretty to look at.
Yeah, they are beautiful. And there's so many different types of clouds to look at, especially these rare ones are most eye-catching, I think.
Some would think that. Some like the cirrus clouds. Some don't even like clouds at all. I think there's also there's popularity in cumulonimbus clouds when there are storms and they're producing lightning, and people really get a charge.
Yeah.
A lightning and a charge. People get a charge out of taking pictures of those. But these will not produce any rain. Like I said, they are the highest clouds on Earth.
I think clouds have that misconception of, if there's a cloud, there's a rainstorm coming, and people like to avoid them and prefer more of like sun peeking out in the sky. But
Yes.
it's just it looks like when there's a sunset, the skies remind me of cotton candy, the clouds.
They remind you of what?
Cotton candy?
Cotton candy.
Yeah.
Yes. We see that sometimes even more so at dusk when we get that pinkish hue that we see on our web cameras at kxan.com.
What's your favorite part about the clouds?
Fair weather cumulus clouds make for a very picturesque sky.
Yeah, that's true.
They're not going to produce any rain. They're just going to make the sky look really pretty.
Yes, they will. Well, our third question and our final question is, how do interglacial periods affect weather, and what can we expect as we continue through the current period?
Well, here's the problem. Right now, we are in an interglacial period, and we have been for several years. It's a warm period between glacial periods, and the last known glacial period was 120,000 to 11,500 years ago. What happened is that the Earth's temperature has been increasing over the last thousands and thousands of years, and will continue to increase as we continue to monitor the global change that we are seeing in our climate and in our weather. right now, what we're seeing and what is contributing to this interglacial period, and as temperatures continue to warm, we are seeing a reduction in the sea ice and the snow. There are some snow areas that rely on snow as a source of water when the snow starts to melt that are not getting that because there have not been too many snow events. And so what is happening now is not expected to change given where we are in our climate season at this time. That is according to climatologists who do study the glaciers up north and down in Antarctica.
And what was the scene looking like last year during the interglacial period compared to this year?
Well, it's pretty much the same thing. We're seeing we've seen more. We saw the warmest January ever in 2024. That was topped by the warmest January ever in 2025. We're still waiting to see what the numbers are for February. And so we don't expect there to be another glacial period, at least not in the time that you and I have left on Earth.
Okay, well, let's jump back to that first question, or that second question I asked you about, and that is climate change and allergies.
A few weeks ago, I did a blog on how there have been fewer freeze days, and in Austin, it was an average of 12 between 1970 and 2024. What that contributes to is an early budding of the plants and the shrubs and things of that nature. And so when you start getting plants starting to bud a little bit sooner, they start to blossom a little bit faster. They are releasing their pollens, and this is contributing to an earlier start to the pollen season. But what I looked at was, are we seeing numbers for our spring trees starting to happen a little sooner? And the answer was not necessarily, because we're supposed to see the trees like ash and elm, for example, start to bloom in February, and we started to see that. Now, when we start seeing these a little bit earlier, we're not seeing them in high numbers, but any pollen can be debilitating. It could be a low number, and some people are going to be affected by that. And so, once again, in conjunction with our partners at Climate Central, we took a look at 172 cities across the country and 11 here in Texas to determine whether or not there was an early start to the pollen season. Austin was not one of the cities that Climate Central looked at. The closest one was Waco, and it was determined that no, the growing season is not starting faster in Waco. So we use that as is it possible that what's happening in Waco is happening here? But for the other 10 cities, the growing season looked to start as early as 1 day versus El Paso, for example, at 53 days.
And you have this article that I was kind of showing right now on the screen.
Yes.
But I do like these graphics that you put in there. Climate change worsens seasonal allergies, and it kind of explains why in that graphic. This one also is interesting. Can you tell me about this map?
That map shows the the longer growing season, and the darker the shade, the more days of the longer growing season there is. And most of these were found east of the Mississippi River, and not as many out to the west. And in Texas, like I said, the city with the longest growing season since 1950 has been El Paso, followed by Tyler, and somewhere in the middle like the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex.
Yeah, it looks like most of North Texas is feeling that in that map. We also have the Texas growing season.
There it is right there too.
You just talked about that.
And we're going to talk about the rest of the day's weather at 10 o'clock in 6 minutes over on KXAN.
Perfect. Well,
thank you, Esme.
Yes, thanks so much for joining me. I'm excited to see what topic we have for next Sunday. And
we'll find a good one.
Yeah, hopefully we have a good chat again. Thank you so much.
Thank you.